So I have some fun techniques to show you that I use with spray paint. So I'm not a graffiti artist and I'm not trained at all to use spray paint. I'm actually not very good at using spray paint. I don't know how to write and draw with it. I've tried a few times to learn, but mostly I like to mess around with it, and I love the different techniques you can get with it, from a light spray to, you know, like really just getting in there and hitting it till it drips. You know, and I love the gritty feel of spray paint, the graffiti feel, and I just have a lot of fun with it. I make collage papers, and I also use it in my abstract paintings. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. Stay tuned. I always spray paint outside, so I thought I'd show you my setup. I also, if I remember, wear a mask, a respirator mask. Sometimes I'm busy working and I forget to put it on, and it looks so lovely, don't you think? And I'm spray painting on a piece of poster board because I really like the off spray, but I have this big tablecloth because you need to be careful that the off spray doesn't hit things that you don't want to get spray painted. I'm not real picky when it comes to brands. I use Rust-Oleum from the hardware store. This is called Design, and Krylon from the craft store. Or you can get professional artist brands like Liquitex. Oh, this one is from the dollar store. And I like to pay attention to what the finish is. I don't like gloss. I like satin or matte. And this one here is Liquitex, and it's a transparent color. You want to give your paint a really good shake before you spray, and use a place where you can test the spray before you get started. I'm actually going to show you that one later. This is some of the techniques that I use over and over. And I don't know where I came up with this, but I use rocks as a resist. It makes a really cool pattern. I like to start light and then go heavier in different areas. The rocks give a really interesting pattern anyway. The edges are very soft because some of the spray is going under the rock. But I don't always attempt to make a real even flat color. I like something that's a little bit uneven intentionally. I'm using my custom-made acrylic painted papers made with drawing paper and acrylic paint, and I have a couple videos about that if you're interested. I'll share them in the description. For this one, I'm using some twine from the hardware store. Real easy to come by. You could use any kind of rope. And also I want to mention that another really fun one with a household supply is rubber bands. These are some leaves I pressed earlier in the week. I didn't do a great job of pressing them, but also what is a great idea to do here is to stick a little bit of painter's tape under them to nail them down. You'll see when I start spraying that one of them, I didn't do that, and the spray paint pushes it around, and you're not going to get a very good resist. My white clogged, so that made me go to YouTube and research what the heck am I supposed to be doing to keep these nozzles from clogging. You're supposed to turn the can upside down when you're done spraying and spray until no more paint comes out. It's supposed to clear the nozzle and clear the tube. I tried doing it, and I feel like I'm wasting paint, so I don't always do it. Then I found out that Liquitex also sells a nozzle cleaner, and you pop the nozzle off and put it on this can of cleaner and spray. So these are some techniques to keep your spray paint from clogging, and I hope to get better at doing that in the future because it's so frustrating. You can also buy replacement nozzles or caps, and the graffiti artists buy different ones to do different techniques with. Here I'm using a piece of lace as a resist or a stencil, and I've used this lace over and over and over, so it's very stiff and works really well. I just taped down the edges off the paper. So here the sun came out, but you can see this beautiful reveal of gold spray paint on blue paper. This is a poster board stencil that I had cut on a laser. So it's one of my drawings, and I'm able to have them cut on a laser. Now, for the back of the stencil, you could use spray mount. I don't, because then I store it with other things and it's sticky and messy, but I do use little pieces of painter's tape, and that's to stick down some of the edges. I don't mind some of the places being a little fuzzy. I think it's a nice look. So I have a piece of poster board under here, and I could have just done these on my tablecloth, but I decided to get a nice piece of white poster board because I really love the way the off spray looks after doing several of these projects. So I intentionally move my paper a little bit, and I get these layers of color, and you're going to see me work on this piece of poster board at the end. So this fern had not dried completely flat. So I put some tape on my finger, which is ridiculous, and I'm using my finger to hold the fern flat. Here what you can't see is I actually have a piece of paper that is white taped down to my poster board, but the paper is painted with white acrylic paint. I don't know that this would work that great, you know, just on paper. It's spray paint and saran wrap on top of acrylic paint. You want to get that saran wrap down onto the wet paint, and it sort of like grabbed it. It was very, very sticky, so I didn't get to move it around too much. And then I wanted to see what it does if you peel it back right away, because when I use this in my paintings with acrylic paint, I usually let it dry all the way and then pull it back. So I did a test. I pulled half of it back while it was wet, then I let it dry and I pulled the other part. And they do look slightly different, so you can decide which you prefer. I think this technique is really worth exploring some more, because I should have left some areas maybe that weren't quite as heavy just to get a little more contrast. I have a different video if you're interested using saran wrap in acrylic paint. And I'll put that in the description, and I'll put a little card that you can watch that video. So here I decided to do a pour and then spray paint into it. My paint is thinned with airbrush medium. You could thin it with water. And what I noticed was the spray paint sort of dried on the top and the paint underneath stayed wet for a long time. Because it was on paper, I was able to flip it over and use a hairdryer on the back. And with a lot of drier time, I was able to finally get it dry. I have used this technique in my paintings, and I just let it sit for, you know, a while, a week maybe, and it will eventually dry. So here's my attempt at being a graffiti artist. Like I said, I don't really try to draw or write too much with it, so I just layered it up and had fun with it. So by this time, with all this spray painting, my wrist was starting to really hurt. And then I remembered that I have this thing, I don't even know what it's called, and you put the spray paint can into this, what is it called? Handle. And you got to make sure that the nozzle is pointing out, or when you use the handle, it's just spraying paint into the handle, which is what I did. You'll see. Oops. So check it that the nozzle is pointing out, and then you have this little handle that is much easier to work, actually, and doesn't hurt your wrist as much. It's kind of fun. Now here I'm working on a piece of acetate, clear acetate. This is really fun, and I'll show you at the end what I do with them. So here's the one I did on acetate, and I'm holding it up to a window so you can see light coming through it. And I layer it with other paintings, either spray paint or brushwork on frosted mylar or clear acetate. So you can play with the layers this way and get some really interesting paintings. I love seeing them with light coming through them. Okay, so here's my poster board that I promised to show you. I worked on it, and you see on the edges you have all these layers, and in the middle I put a couple transparent layers. So that's something that I wanted to show, that the techniques are interesting on their own, but you can also play with layering them. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.